Hey, Adam, welcome. And anyone else who's watching, very warm welcome to you too. I'm Tracy from Mental Health, no, in fact, Open Minds Mental Health. We run an organisation that supports people in training around mental health. And one of the things we're doing at the moment is sharing people's stories. So one of the joys of what I do is that I get to hear the experiences that people have of their mental health and mental illness. And I really wanted you as listeners to have the privilege of hearing those stories as well. But actually, this one is going to be slightly different. So Adam is going to talk to us really as a business owner, because one of the things that have come out from the conversations we've had is what a difference it can make for people to be able to work, and what a supportive business and organisation looks like for someone who might be experiencing challenges with their mental health, and the things that can be real barriers to people being able to enjoy employment. So that's what Adam's here. Adam, hello.
Hi, Tracy.
Now, I haven't told you this question I'm going to start with, and actually that is that I'd really like you to share with me and us what your biggest passion is. What is it in life that really excites you? That's your thing.
My biggest passion. I really enjoy my job, and I really enjoy spending time with my family, and those are the two things.
Is that really true?
Yes, yeah, it is.
That's so good.
I'm a bit weird. I'm a bit weird like that, and I love untangling complicated issues and problems at work, and sitting down with a good spreadsheet and working it out, and I find that really satisfying.
That's amazing. I mean, well, yeah, great. Brilliant. You've aced that. Okay. So then tell us about this job. Tell us about your business. What's it called? What do you do? Tell us about it.
So our business is called Castrads. It's a company I run with my brother, Nick, and it was founded by our dad back in 2006. Started off as quite a small business, building and assembling cast iron radiators. And it's grown over the years. We've now expanded from the original rented farm unit in Stockport to a factory, a shop in London, a couple of premises in New York now, and a factory in Poland. And just this year, we've launched a new line of products, a new business called Hornbeam, which is cast iron pans. It's really exciting. We've got about 65 people, I think, around the world that work with us. And just a really lovely bunch of people to work with.
2006. So when did you come into the business?
So I first started doing a few bits of work in 2010, and I came on board full time in 2017.
Right. So a family business, but one that's grown quite a lot beyond that, and wide geographically, which must be exciting but challenging to feel like a cohesive group. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I think so. It's challenging with things like time zones. So for a long time, the people in the factory used to work 6 till 2, and people in New York work 9 till 5. Because of the time difference, there was no overlap. It can be different culturally, but a lot of people who've gone to work abroad have come from the base in Manchester, so they've brought their kind of culture with them. So that works quite well. The main thing I think is difficult is not all being in the same office, and so it can be difficult to check up on people and not in the way of checking they're doing the work, but check they're okay. Check that people.
Yeah. And so Adam and I met, we think back in 2020 when you came on a 2-day mental health first aid course, I'm going to just tell this funny story. So it was during COVID, wasn't it? So we'd never met each other in real life, and I was coming out of a toilet in a service station. I think it was in Gloucester, and I heard my name being called, and I thought, that's really weird. I was in a service station. You don't know people in service stations. this face appeared, and it was Adam, who I'd never met in real life before. And that's the first time we have met in real life since then, haven't we? But that was a very odd.
Don't normally cost people in service station toilets. Honestly,
I was incredibly impressed that you spotted me and realised who I was. So you did that course with me. So tell me why you did that course, and maybe a bit about how you see mental health in your business, in your staff, how you, yeah, how it sort of impacts, how it comes to light to you that people may experience struggle.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the very obvious thing that does happen, sadly, is people take time off from work, and that's I think it's very noticeable. And then but it kind of it can uh, spread really quite easily, and with people then having to work harder to cover the people who are off, and people feel this is a stressful place to work,
Right.
and it can become quite consuming. So as a
But
business, you can
Adam,
quite easily value that in days lost.
right, yeah, right. So from an economic point of view, you feel the hit of that in your
Yeah.
business. When someone takes time off, are they explicit about it being about their mental health, or do you think they often say it's something more physical?
I think it depends. It depends. Some people are quite comfortable talking about mental health, and some less so. There was actually a member of staff who you trained just recently, earlier this year, and he said how helpful that was, because culturally for him, people don't talk about mental health, and I think he found the course really helpful, and um, to know that it was okay to talk about that. So I think it depends. Some people are really comfortable talking about it, and some less so. Some people might not even realise themselves quite what's going on. They might have the language for it.
Right, right. Does your gut suggest that there are people that have taken time off for well-being issues that might not have said it, or do you think you've ever lost staff? Have people left because they're struggling with their mental health and don't feel able to deal with it in the workplace, do you think?
Yeah, for sure.
Do you think?
Yeah, also wouldn't speak about particular stories, but I know I can think of one lady in particular.
Yeah.
um, had a tough time outside of work, and couldn't. We tried our best to support it, but it wasn't working out. So
And so you came to the 2 day, you and a fellow member of staff, somebody who looks after your HR, came and did the 2 day mental health first aid course too, didn't they?
that's right. Yeah, yeah. Jackie, who's lovely. One of the best people I've ever met. She's wonderful with people. So
She's in the right job then.
yeah, she's in the right job. But yeah, we did separate courses though. I did yours. I think she did one closer to home for her. So you wouldn't have met her on that course.
Right. And why did you do it? And how do you think it benefited how you think and what decisions you might have made for your business following doing it?
Yeah. So um, we'd had we had a bit of a tough time, if I'm honest, in 2019. This was the year before we met. It was kind of a tough year in the industry anyway. Sales weren't brilliant. And then you start to look around and thinking, well, where do we need to make some cuts potentially? We'd also taken a bit of a gamble. So Nick, my brother who I run the business with, had moved out to New York. And that was a big expensive gamble, and hadn't yet paid off. We had, with Nick away, I was stepping in doing a lot of the jobs he used to do, and I wasn't as experienced as he was. I think for a lot of people felt a bit abandoned, perhaps.
Right.
And money was tight. On New Year's Eve 2019, I had to pay the bills for the company on a credit card because I didn't have enough cash in the bank. And there was a lot of stress and tension around. We had some issues at work as well, in particular with particular people and particular relationships. And we did lose a fair bit of time off, staff time off. But more than that, I did say it's easy to value because you can put cash value on lost working days, but there's something you can't, or less tangible to value, which is just the atmosphere of how people feel at work. And I know, I'm sure that has an impact on your business performance, but just what's it like to go into work every day, and if it feels miserable going to work every day, why are you doing the job anymore?
That's how you were feeling, or how you worried other people were feeling.
Yeah, I mean, for all of us, right? Usually if you spend
Yeah.
40 hours a week at work, why would you keep going to work if it's just a miserable place to spend your time?
Right.
Um, So yeah, we'd had a bit of a tough time, and luckily we kind of came through it. The gamble in New York paid off, but we didn't want to be back in that position again. And another colleague of ours came back. He'd been on a different training course, I think, but he mentioned about, oh, I heard about this mental health first aid training course that more and more people are doing. And I went and looked it up online, and Jackie and I decided to give it a whirl and see how we, see what we thought. And it was great. It was really useful. It was an interesting course to do, but helpful to think about how you're approaching your employees. The thing I would say about it though is that it's probably not really enough to send just your senior staff onto the mental health first aid course. As a manager, by the time someone comes to speak to you, and you do end up hearing a lot about people's issues outside of work, because people do come to you and tell you what's up when they need to take time off work. But by the time they come to after time off work, it's too late. Not that it's too late for them to get help, but we should have been stepped in sooner. And as the boss, you're probably not the person people come to speak to first. It's the water cooler chat that makes the difference. And we realised that what we needed to do was to spread the message really, and sort of get the culture right in the business. I was really pleased. So when Mental Health Week came up, we decided we were going to send some people on the Mental Health Aware training course, and we were absolutely swamped by people who said they were interested, and it was really nice.
So amazing.
Yeah, it was so much so we ended up having to say, well, sorry, some of you are going to have to wait till next year. So we've now run it twice with Tracy. Really lovely feedback from all the staff every time. I've really enjoyed it. So yeah.
And you have to be quite brave, don't you? Because you suggested that. I remember the group included your dad, didn't it? I think that first group. Am I right? Your dad was there, was he?
My dad was there. I remember because he came on the call and so my dad sometimes it can be known for saying something a little bit out of putting his foot in his mouth.
And I think you warned me that might be the case.
And when he spoke up and he said this really lovely thing, didn't he? And about sometimes you don't always know when you're suffering from mental health, and I felt like that sometimes, and it was brilliant. Yeah.
Do it's really surprising, and if anybody is listening to this and not sure about whether to offer it up or not, I know I'm biased, but I can genuinely say every group I've had, and I've had groups of almost entirely ex-military men who within they will end up in tears because they really want to understand things better and get things right for their children or their grandchildren or whatever. But yeah, I do think it was really brave of you, and I am lucky because I get to deliver this stuff, and I know that the MHF England stuff is really well designed, and it always hits. But yes, so to know that you've done it and you get good feedback and it feels like something that's been worthwhile, so much so you did then do it again the next year, didn't you? You did put another cohort of people together.
Absolutely, yeah, and there was some people who couldn't make it because of calendar issues or whatever, and some people who didn't get on because they were just a bit back in the queue. But yeah, it was quite well subscribed again, wasn't it?
And I think you're right, it was, and we did have people. I think we had people from Poland, certainly from the US. I remember, and I'm desperate to go to your shop in Chelsea because there was a couple of lovely people that I met that would be lovely to meet in real life. But I think you're right in that to really change the culture of an organisation, you somehow have to get that message out more widely, don't you? I think having mental health first aid is really important. But I also agree with you that I think so often it's those conversations you have with the person that you sat next to, or the person you're in the van with, or on the factory floor with. And if you've got an army of people that can spot the signs and be open and non-judgmental about what somebody might be going through, then you're so much more likely to be able to impact change earlier before someone gets to a point where they need to talk to you because they need to have some time off. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning, to be honest, Adam. I think I probably said this, you want to remember because it was years ago now, but I think mental health issues can be so complex, but early stages of people not coping so well with the right people around them, it's really possible that those interventions and that support and just being heard when you're struggling can be enough to change the trajectory, that people are able to look after themselves better, get the help that they need earlier, and thus their lives not be so limited by it.
Yeah, sure. The earlier you can get involved, the better. These things build up and snowball, don't they?
So do you feel, it's possibly an unfair question, does it feel like it's different, having sort of made those very public commitments to offering training, to investing people's time and money in that, the thinking that you and Jackie now have, having done the training? Do you think it's made a difference? And be honest, don't, clearly you know what I'd like you to say, but is there a sense of relationships being stronger, people feeling more able to talk about things if they're struggling with them, or is it not something that you've noticed as the leader of an organisation?
I think it'd be hard to notice when you're in the thick of it to change, but what I can go, and also I don't have lots of experience of being in lots of different organisations, so you sort of know what you know. But we have had some nice feedback from people who joined the organisation more recently.
Right.
So we've got someone on our team who's autistic, and I think he said he didn't feel it was safe to tell his employers in his past role, his past job. But he has explained that to people, not just to me and Nick, but also he's actually planned to do a presentation to the whole company about autism and what it means. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, so he clearly, I know he does feel safe to be able to talk about that and be respected. So that feels nice.
And is that just because of that he feels that the culture is open and welcoming and accepting, or do you have policies? Do you have it in your recruitment? Do you have it written down, or is it just the fact that the organisation is open?
Yeah, I'm sure we do have it written down somewhere, but it's only a piece of paper, isn't it?
Yeah.
He feels that it's the culture.
Yeah.
His lived experience of it.
Yeah, I am seeing more that people are actually explicitly saying in recruitment that we welcome people who have experienced mental ill health, and sometimes stating it can, because it's still quite unusual, can be something that really hides. But it is challenging, isn't it? I really understand how, I've run organisations myself, and you're under a lot of pressure, often to deliver an awful lot with barely enough people. And so when you do have people who are struggling, it can be really challenging to risk someone who might struggle. But our experience is, I remember a story of someone I trained recently, an organisation who had somebody on their staff who experienced OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and they knew about it very similar to your situation, that that the staff knew about it, they were open about it. And what it meant was that when that person was late for work, his colleagues knew that it might be because their OCD is particularly challenging, so they could check in with them. Are you all right? How are things? And that seemed really simple, but I just remember it really struck me that if that wasn't the case, and that was happening for that person, they may think, oh my God, I've been late twice already this week, I can't possibly go in again late, or I'm going to have to take the whole day off. That might end up with a week off, leaving the job or whatever, because they don't feel like they can be open about what's going on. So then the company loses people for days and days and weeks, possibly loses that. But being open, actually, if the person thrives with your organisation, that's going to be better for the organisation, and they're committed to you because you show such commitment. So yeah, I really think that economic concern about people who suddenly start becoming flaky, they're not going to come into work if we start, they're all going to want duvet days. My experience is that the companies who really get it have a hugely dedicated team who really would rather be at work than not be at work, even if they're not entirely 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as a business, there's a danger you can sometimes get into when you find yourself in the position where you're managing everything by the rules and the processes. rather than people just want to do the right thing. It's a really dangerous place to be. Is, you know, people start gaming the system or to cheating it, or you know, and it's just a horrible place to be. When people are passionate about being there and they feel it's important to support their friends and their colleagues at work, and that's just everything flows more easily. You know?
Yeah. So what about you then? What about as you as a chief exec level? So, you know, often people who are running organizations or in roles of responsibility feel very much a responsibility to care for those that they're there to support. Do you feel like anybody looks up and looks after you?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Actually, it's really tricky. It can be quite lonely at the top, or the bottom, depending on which way you draw your structure diagrams. Actually, I really like that. I went to Japan. They always draw them the upside down because they always say the job of the boss is to have the weight of everyone on their shoulders.
Oh my God, yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, whereas in the West we tend to draw the boss at the top anyway.
Yeah.
Um, I feel really lucky that it's a family-run business. I work with my brother. It makes a lot of stuff very easy. I was talking about trust and things flowing well. You know, there's a lot of trust between me and Nick, and that helps. But the main thing is that I feel like I can go and talk to them about stuff. I can go and blow off steam,
Yeah.
which is really helpful. In the same way that I think a lot of people in most organisations will blow off a bit of steam at the water cooler or whatever. Oh God, this thing's happened. I can't believe they've said this. It's hard to do that as a boss, and you can't go and just I'm feeling really angry with what so and so said, and you can't go and do that to someone else because then that becomes a thing. But I feel fortunate I've got Nick to be able to do that with. There is a couple of people we work with as well. So there's a couple of consultants we brought on board, which are really, and one of the reasons we brought them on is because it's partly because they're good listeners. So they're quite good at using it as a sounding board. So if you are running your own business, it's helpful to have those people who are not an employee, not a direct employee,
Right.
to speak to, or someone like you, Tracy. But yeah, it's important to have people who are not your direct employees that you can kind of let off steam. Helps you gather your thoughts,
Yeah.
and get things right, and before you get the message out.
Yeah. So is there anything, so you've been in your business for a fair old time now, is there anything looking back that you would have implemented sooner, done differently? How could we learn from your experience of doing the journey that you've done so far?
Yeah, I think there's a few things I would say. One is about getting the culture right. And actually, I'm not the first person to say this at all. I mean, have you ever read that book, Good to Great?
No.
No, it's a good book. Jim Collins, I think. Anyway, he talks a lot about things what make businesses work well. But one thing he talks about is culture and values. And he said of the study he did, the companies with a good culture were the ones that thrived and did well. And what was interesting is it didn't really matter what your culture was. So if your culture was we screw the customers and it's every man for himself and we just focus on the money, that would be a culture that you could build a business around that would bond. And it might not be a business you want to work for or shop with, but having the culture is the important thing. And we were quite lucky in that we always say me and Nick inherited a nice company, a nice culture. We were lucky that we had people like Jackie and I mentioned earlier, who had just created this warm, welcoming environment.
And that's why it's important, isn't it? Because she wouldn't probably come to you and stay with you if it wasn't a business that her personality could thrive in. So
well, yes,
it's probably a bit of go on.
Yeah, right. Yes, no, that's a good point. But certainly we had people who reinforced it, which was great. And it was only once we recognised we had it that we said we need to protect this.
Right.
Sure. And once we did that, I think the thing looking back now, one of the mistakes we made sometimes is recruiting or keeping people around who weren't a good fit for that culture.
Okay.
I talked before about things flowing well. When everyone aligns with your values and your mission, then things work easier. If people don't trust each other or have got different working against each other, it's not going to work as well.
Right. That can't be an easy thing to navigate.
No, and it's easy. The sooner you get it right, the better.
Okay, so probation periods and being explicit about what that culture is and what the expectations are.
Yeah, right in the interview process, you want to talk about it.
Right. So you can filter even at that stage that
Yeah.
people will know what you're about before they join you. And right.
Yeah. And even then, it can take a while to really get to know people. But yeah, you need to get that right. And I think the mistake we made in the past was thinking, oh, well, this person's technically competent. Oh, they're too good at their job to be able to. But the thing is, you can always find more technical skills. What you can't find as a company is your team. Your mission. You can't recreate that if that's just not working. So, for example, in our culture, one of the big things is respect, and that's really important. And it's just so helpful to have those things set out, because you can have rules and policies and things, but people can always argue with that and say, well, the policy's wrong or the rule's wrong, and sometimes it might be. But no one ever argues and says, oh no, I should be disrespectful. It's okay to not be respectful. And you can say, well, is it respectful or not to turn up late to every meeting or something, or to not be telling the truth to this person, and people can't really argue with that. It's not that they can't. People don't want to argue with that. So yeah, pick your culture that's important to you, and protect it religiously.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree more. I used to often, with my teams, every year we would do an exercise around what's our vision? Do we still agree with this vision? Then what's our mission? What's, how do we achieve that vision? And so that everybody had a buy-in. And so I'll match your book with 7 Habits of a Highly Effective Person.
Yes.
Have you read that or heard of it?
Brilliant. Toby, isn't it? What's his name?
Oh, I can't remember. Really, really good. And in fact, actually, a lot of it I felt was very in line with mental health first aid training. Actually, a lot of what he said really resonated, but some really amazing things around culture and buy-in, and people feeling included, and how we have good conversations, and listening, how important listening is, so much more than speaking. Some really interesting stuff that will professionally benefit you, but personally too.
Yes, for sure. So actually, and his son, the guy that wrote a book called The Power of Trust, I think, which is really interesting. That's something I've touched on a couple of times there. Where the real essence of it is, he says, if you're operating in a high trust environment, everyone gets a dividend. Everything runs quickly and smoothly. When you're operating in a low trust environment, everything's slower and more difficult because you have to check everything, and you need to put all these kind of protections in place to make sure. So what you really want to do as a business is create that high trust environment where everyone gets on and believes in each other.
Oh, Adam, I think that's probably a really good place to end the conversation on trust. Adam, I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for talking to us. And if anybody wants to get in touch and learn more about training, there's some stuff on the website, www.openmindsmentalhealth.co.uk, or find out about Castrads. So Hornbeam.
Yeah.
Amazing stainless. Their pans. What?
Iron pans.
Yeah, amazing. So do look out for them too. Adam, thank you. I should stop recording. Thanks everybody for joining us.